Welcome to another episode of The Artsy Raven, a show about writing and publishing with your host, J.F. Garrard.
Welcome to another episode of The Artsy Raven with Kayla Branstetter. And Kayla is a published writer, an award-winning artist, and TEDx speaker from Missouri. While growing up, she split her time between rural Missouri and the suburbs of Denver. With her feet in two worlds, she became adept at connecting with people from diverse backgrounds. She has a passion for breaking through barriers to achieve gender equality and amplifying marginalized voices. Her forthcoming nonfiction book, Don't Be an Athena, where women tell their stories about abortion, birth, and infertility, is scheduled to be released in July 2026. So welcome, Kayla.
Thank you.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Outside of being a writer, I'm also an English instructor for a 2-year community college in Neosho, Missouri. I work at Crowder College, and I've been in higher education roughly 6 years, but I've been in education total 16. I taught high school English for 10 years at a rural school in Southwest Missouri. And I have 2 daughters, an 11-year-old and a soon-to-be 7-year-old, who keep me quite busy. They are in competitive sports.
Oh, no.
And
That sounds really
yeah,
busy.
they are both softball players. The 11-year-old has aspirations to become a professional softball player. So softball is like her world right now. But she's not just a softball player. She enjoys cooking. She codes, animates. She likes graphic novels and dragons. And so she has like an identity beyond sports. And then my soon to be 7-year-old, depends on the week what she wants to do. Sometimes she wants to follow big sister, wants to be a professional athlete, but then she tells me she wants to be Taylor Swift, and then she wants to be a doctor. So I'm like, I'm okay with any of those paths. And then my husband teaches elementary for a local rural school district as well. I love to travel. I've been to like 20 something different countries. So it's, I stay busy.
What kind of things do you usually write about?
I write about anything and everything. So I'm trying humor in my next book, and I will say I think writing humor is harder than writing like what I wrote in Don't Be an Athena, because I think trying to keep that tone for such a long period of time it's challenging me in a way that I do appreciate. I write about my childhood as well. I have a book, or not a book, I have an essay called Playing Wonder Woman, and it's all about growing up on a farm near dirt road during hay season. And I broke my arm playing on the hay bales, doing something that I should not have been doing, that my family told me not to do. And and so I write sometimes. I'm really getting into just nostalgia right now. My grandmother passed away last month, and when she passed away, I felt like this portal to this time had been closed, if that makes sense. It's like
No, it's
she
like people are like books, like, once
yeah,
they go, you lose all this knowledge.
and that's where I am. So I wrote an essay called Cardinal, about, because she loved birds, and it was also about my mother-in-law, who also passed away this year. It's been a rough year,
Wow.
and just what cardinals mean. And I'm writing an essay right now called Hummingbird, and it's just, I'm reflecting on my childhood and being at my grandparents' home, and she loved to garden and just nature. So right now I write whatever mood I'm in, and like right now I'm in this reflective, nostalgic like time
Okay.
of like trying to remember my childhood and like going back there, if that, yeah.
Now, I've never been to Missouri or Denver. Like, do you find them very different places?
Oh, they're very different. And so in my part of Missouri, I'm in the Southwest region, we have a ton of rivers and creeks, lakes, a lot of hiking, forest. I live on a 128-acre property, and we have deer and cranes, herons, hawks. I will hear an owl and pigeons, doves, a ton of wildlife. You'll encounter a snake or two sometimes. We also have 2 creeks on my land. So you'll see like turtles and little minnows and just a lot of wildlife. And I'll also, we have a ton of hills, trees.
Mhm.
It's just, it's humid. So we've had a lot of storms this season, a lot of tornadoes. So we've had some storm damage over the last couple of weeks with trees falling down, and some siding on my house has been blown off. But then Denver is near the mountains, the Rocky Mountains. It's called a Mile High City because it's higher in elevation. Missouri is not as high, and the air is a little drier, so it doesn't have the humidity. They're not as known for tornadoes. Eastern Colorado is because it's getting close to Kansas. It's flatter. Um, so just completely different. And even like culturally, it's a tad bit different. Like Missouri and Southwest Missouri, it's a little more conservative and traditional, whereas Denver is a tad bit more progressive. So I grew up in understanding like both points of view.
Cool. Now, has teaching English shaped your understanding of storytelling and communication? Has that impacted you as a writer?
Yes and no. I feel like I've always been a writer. Growing up, I was surrounded by storytelling. It's during hay season, and my whenever there was a break, they would have like sweet tea and water and just fruit, and my family would just sit on like lawn chairs in my grandparents' front yard, and they would always just tell stories of the past. I would always write. I had diaries and journals. I loved to read. And my first writing award happened when I was in first grade. I won first place for a short story called The Beautiful Butterfly. And I won another young authors, I think when I was in second grade, for a book about a horse. My first like national publication was when I was in sixth grade, and it was a poem dedicated to my mother. And then I took a break. I think I fell in love with writing more when I started teaching, because when you're empowering young minds to find their voice and knowing how to communicate and write, it helps you also become a stronger writer. You develop a better understanding of writing when you are teaching writing.
Mm. Now, were there any lessons that you always seem to, or advice you seem to always give your students when you're writing, or when they're writing?
The couple of advice I give is I always have students that ask me, how do I overcome writer's block? And I give them the advice that my creative writing professor gave me, and that's just write. You have to write. And sometimes if all you do is have a blank sheet of paper and say, this is a sentence, it could be something basic. It doesn't need to be this Pulitzer Prize winning paragraph. Just push yourself through it. And I encountered that when I was writing my book. There were moments where I know I need to get this chapter done, but I think my closet needs to be cleaned out.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
Or you're like, man, that dish in that sink is bothering me. I think I need to go clean that one dish and go put it up. So, like, trying to sit down and tell yourself, I need to get this finished. And, but then I had the opposite problem. Like, right now, I want to work on my second book, but I don't want to work on my second book. I want to work on my next book. So, um, so trying to find the discipline to complete a huge writing project is advice I give students, that if you encounter a writer's block, the best thing to do is to write. Or when I found out when I was writing Don't Be an Athena, because this took me about 6 years, because I am a mom who is a full-time who has a full-time job. I found myself, whenever I was hitting a roadblock on how I wanted to move this narrative forward, I found myself reading more and more and more. And I would read with the intention of, I would read like a writer and not as a reader, because I was
Mm, yes.
studying the structure and how that writer would push a narrative forward. And anytime I would find myself just struggling to push a narrative forward, I'd find myself just reading, and it didn't matter what I was reading. I would read anything and everything just to study the craft of writing, and that would help me move my narrative forward. I, Another lesson I give my students is be mindful of your audience. Keep your audience in mind. The first time we write, it's for ourselves. But if we're writing with the intent of having an audience, we must keep our audience in mind. And if something in our writing isn't making sense to most of our audience, we probably need to go back and make that change.
Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about Don't Be an Athena. Can you give us a little synopsis about what this book is about?
So I encountered infertility and a miscarriage, and I was exposed to this apathetic society through that journey. And as a result, and I would reach out to other women. I was very public about my issues with infertility and with miscarriages, and I would have women come to me in private talking about their own journeys. And that prompted, so when COVID happened and we were all in timeout for quarantine, and I was able to reflect over my experiences, this idea of writing a book where I would interview a variety of women surfaced. And I spoke to close friends, spoke to close family, and asked, what do you think about an idea of this book? And they said they would enjoy it. So this book is, I interviewed a variety of women from across the United States. So having a diverse group of women was important to me, because I want most American women to see themselves in this book, or any women in general. And I interviewed women from New York City all the way to California, from rural areas, urban areas, suburban areas, women of a variety of educational backgrounds, women who are quite educated, women who didn't receive the opportunity to continue with their education, poverty, upper middle class, uh, um, white women, Black women, women, Hispanic, Asian, even Indigenous. So it was important to get these women's stories and putting them together. And my hope is most women can see themselves in one of these women, if not multiple women, as they are reading. And each woman has literally their own story, whether it's teen pregnancy, miscarriage, women who, the decision to get an abortion, the IVF, surrogacy, adoption, women who don't want to be moms, and the stigma behind that decision to be a career woman but not a mom, women who wanted to be moms but just life happened, and just like, how do you overcome that type of grief? I talk about medical misogyny, medical gaslighting. I talk about domestic violence and sexual assault and the lack of resources and education. So it's really a book about survival and hope, as much as it is a book about education and advocacy.
Now, in interviewing so many women, did you find any common themes from the conversations you had with them?
Yes, most women are, it didn't matter if they were from New York City or in a rural area, because one of the women I interviewed from New York suffered from domestic violence as well. And she was someone who is she was in the fashion industry, upper middle class. And the ex-husband was a drug addict off painkillers. And that's something, addiction impacts all socioeconomic status. It affects all education backgrounds. It's not just reserved for low income. Then women who, it didn't matter, again, of the woman's background, just this idea of like medical gaslighting and being dismissed when they go see the doctor. That was a common theme. Sexual assault was something that across the board affects all types of women. So a lot of common motifs surfaced while I was interviewing these women.
Okay, now, what do you hope readers get after reading your book? What kind of conversations do you hope they take away and discuss with other people?
I hope empathy, just a better understanding of, some of these women may not come from your same religious background. They may not come from your same political background, but they are still human with stories. And my hope is my readers see the humanity of these women and the courage it took for them to come forward with their stories. And just, I want to challenge their thinking. One of my close friends read this book, and we don't always agree with certain political and social topics, and that's fine. That's what makes the world go round, and we can disagree, but we honestly agree more than we disagree. So she is more pro-life. She is anti-abortion. But when she read this book, she said that it humanized her, because she, even though she may not agree with all of the decisions that these women made, she understands why these decisions were made, and she saw the humanity in it. And that's what I hope is, I'm not asking you to agree with every woman's decision, but I'm asking you to see the humanity in every woman's decision. And that's what I hope my readers gain from reading this book.
Okay, now you're a very busy lady. So,
Yes.
were there any habits you developed over the years to keep on writing? I mean, you also work and you have children, and like, where do you find the time to do everything?
Well, I'm going through perimenopause, and insomnia is a real side effect. So I'm like, I am going to use this side effect to my advantage. But I was not going through it when I started this book. There was a lot of caffeine. It's a book about health, and I'm going to tell you all the unhealthy habits. Because my kids are so busy. I was because when I was going through my second master's, my youngest daughter was 2, and I thought doing graduate work with a toddler was tough. I was wrong, because the toddler has a sleep schedule, and you put the toddler to sleep, and then you can work when the toddler is asleep. I was doing this book. My youngest is going to be 7, so she was kind of a toddler, but my oldest didn't take naps and is in school. We have concerts and parent teacher conferences and doctor's appointments and dentist appointments, and by the way, we want to become a softball player. So it was hard. I wished I could say I had, like, I would wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I would type. No, that did not happen, because I would, come home from a softball tournament and maybe 10 o'clock at night and I want to sleep, which is why this book took me 6 years to make, because I had to find just these pockets of time. And I would find a lot of time in my extended breaks, because I am an English instructor at a college. So anytime I had a fall break or that month off for winter, it was like a marathon of just trying to get my work finished. So that's probably not the right answer, but I worked when I could,
Yeah,
which is why the
yeah.
book took 6 years to make.
Okay. Now you're going to read from it. Can you give us a bit of context and then you can start reading?
I am going to read the prologue that kind of gives us this background into Medusa, Athena, and just kind of this impetus of why this book happened.
Okay.
Medusa was the sole mortal and attractive sister to the Gorgons. She grew quickly into a striking young woman with glorious hair that commanded attention. She could do what she liked, but she decided to remain celibate and serve the powerful goddess Athena in one of the goddess's holy temples. Medusa was clever, and men loved to gaze at her, but she learned to avoid them. She preferred the silence in Athena's quiet temple halls and spent her days befriending and serving the goddess. One day, Poseidon made his presence known to Medusa. To be greeted by a god was a great honor, for it meant she gained his favor. But panic and fear froze her as Poseidon gave in to his temptations and robbed Medusa of her innocence. Athena, shrouded in jealousy and consumed by anger, declared vengeance on Medusa by turning her into a hideous Gorgon with green skin, venomous snakes for hair, and boar's teeth in an awful grimace, the antithesis of Medusa's previous beauty. Athena's curse included the terrifying power to turn any man who looked directly at Medusa into stone. Today, we associate Medusa with the hideous creature transformed by the goddess she worshipped as a punishment for a crime she did not commit. Medusa transformed from victim into a monster creating more victims. Metamorphically, Medusa's body symbolized the exposure of oppression realized and revealed both by Medusa as a victim and her victims. She was a representation of a secret that needed to remain hidden, but once exposed, there was danger and a dark truth. Her monstrous mutation from a once beautiful and pure woman exposed the patriarchal discourse and politics among the Greek gods and goddesses. Much of Greek mythology is centered on the jealousy and pride of the Olympians. No Greek god or goddess was free from flaws, and they were not worshipped for their perfection, rather for their virtues. Their flaws reminded worshippers of the gods' connection to humanity. When Athena transformed the alluring Medusa into a grotesque creature with serpents for hair and the infamous and fatal gaze, she displayed her own jealousy, which conflicted with her characteristics of wisdom and knowledge. This action appeared extreme considering the local community highly regarded Medusa for her unwavering dedication to Athena. But Athena and the powerful sea god Poseidon developed a strained relationship from their shared desire to control the city of Athens, which Athena ultimately won. Athena used her wisdom to convert Athens from a monarchy into a democracy. This begs the question, what was Poseidon's objective with Medusa? Did Medusa's benevolent nature and captivating beauty capture his attention, or did he desire to get back at Athena for winning Athens? To better understand Athena's actions, we must first study the goddess. Athena was one of the three virgin goddesses in Greek mythology, and she lacked a real childhood. She was born fully grown from her father's forehead. According to one legend, Zeus swallowed her mother, and her relationship with her father was complex. Some legends claim that she possessed less freedom because she was bound to her father in ways that other Olympians were not. Other stories suggest she was her father's favorite child, and he granted her enormous power. Despite this, she lacked the power to punish Poseidon for his actions and instead channeled that anger into Medusa herself. Or did she? There are various theories on the reason or reasons Athena responded the way she did. Athena's actions may have arisen from her own fury because Poseidon violated her temple. Athena blamed and punished Medusa for not safeguarding her sanctuary. Medusa's curse was retribution for not defending the temple. Another version of Medusa's transformation describes Athena as a caring and compassionate goddess who gave the vulnerable Medusa the necessary tools to better protect herself from predatory men. In this regard, how many of us have overreacted to protect those we love? After the curse, Medusa was forced to retreat to a remote island with her sisters, far removed from civilization. Her curse made her a covenant prize, attracting warriors and adventurers who sought to claim her head as a trophy. This included Perseus, the son of Zeus, and I think it's Dana, the demigod and half-brother to the goddess Athena, was commanded by a king to bring him the severed head of Medusa. To protect his mother from the king, Perseus requested help from the gods. Hades provided him with a cap of invisibility. Then he was gifted a formidable sword. Hermes gave him winged sandals for swift travel, and Athena provided him with a mirrored bronze shield, the most crucial of the gifts. Athena's gift alone controlled the outcome of Medusa's story. She created Medusa, and she knew that Perseus needed to defeat the monster. Perseus swiftly severed Medusa's head while she slept, and once her blood blanketed the earth, she bore two children. Upon defeating Medusa, Perseus returned and rescued his mother by turning the king and his supporters into stone at the sight of Medusa's head. In this regard, Medusa transitioned from a sought-after monster into a protector. Medusa's death transformed her into an enigma because her head was used as a protective symbol in various contexts and symbolized terror, death, the divine, magical power, protection, and safety. After Perseus killed her and used her head to rescue his mother, he gifted her head to the goddess Athena, who placed it on a goat-skin shield. Medusa's head protected the goddess in several battles, and even Zeus wore Medusa's head on his breastplate. Athena and Zeus, along with several other major Olympians, are rarely depicted without the shield. Athena's decision to hide behind Medusa's head is an interesting one. Athena turned her into a monster, and then played an active role in Medusa's metamorphosis into something more positive, a protector. Currently, Medusa stands as a symbol of female rage, power, resilience, and defiance. She is no longer the monster, but an example of victim shaming. The myth of Medusa was probably not meant as an inspiration that could empower future generations of sexual assault victims. But Medusa's story would allow generations of women to forge their paths and craft their own definitions of what their stories could be. As the Medusa legend demonstrates, the price of admission to being human is suffering is suffering some form of pain and trauma at certain points during a lifetime. Our job is to discover how to transform that trauma into our journey through living. The most hurtful reality of living are the antagonistic statements inflicted upon ourselves or others, usually stemming from judgment, ignorance, or apathy from individuals who truly struggle or don't want to understand. My mother began her high school career full of hope and promise as the youngest and sole girl out of 5 children. As a sophomore in high school, she was the All American girl, captain of her varsity cheerleading squad, a straight A student, a talented flutist, a gifted sketch artist, and a brilliant horsewoman. That was until she found herself pregnant with me at the age of 16. It was Missouri, the 1980s, and in the epicenter of a heavily Protestant area. Tradition said she must get married to keep me from being born out of wedlock, a euphemism for a bastard child. To keep me from developing this usually offensive label, my mother cashed in her savings and married my father, who was 20 at the time. My parents did not take part in any abnormal teenage sexual activity. Their crime was getting pregnant. I, the product of their choice, lived with the community's condemnation of their decision. It is an unforgiving certainty that children of teenage mothers are more likely to become teenage parents themselves. A variety of factors increases a teenage girl's risk of pregnancy, including poverty, limited maternal educational achievement, having a mother who gave birth before the age of 20, living in a home with high levels of family conflict, early sexual activity, and early use of alcohol and drugs. My grandmothers, both maternal and paternal, were teen moms, and so was my mom. In fact, my mother had 2 children before the age of 20. The odds of getting pregnant as a teen were in my favor, and educators treated me like a future high school dropout who would get knocked up. I was held back a grade because my elementary school teachers withheld their attention toward my academic achievement. I did come across talented and caring teachers who went above and beyond to help me, but the discriminatory treatment from a handful of educators, coupled with my mother's high expectations, I had developed a phobia of sex. I was not afraid of sex itself, but I feared becoming pregnant if I involved myself in any sexual activity. I struggled with identifying my sexual desires because I felt giving in to those wishes would end in an unwanted pregnancy, and I'd be damned if I was going to be a teen mom. Little did I know I would struggle to get pregnant and suffer a miscarriage at the age of 28. While my mother carried the burden of being a teen mom, I carried the weight of unexplained infertility. I eventually gave birth to 2 daughters, but like my mother, I was not spared judgment. I bore criticism from the same group of people as my mother. I think about the fact that I come from a teen mother who sacrificed herself for her 3 children and myself as I struggled to have children. Over time, I became captivated by learning about women and their journeys. In some ways, women have many choices, yet some choices were made for us. The conservative and traditional society of Southwest Missouri did not give my mom any other choice but to get married. And I did not have a choice about suffering a miscarriage. A woman does not choose to get sexually assaulted. Women's reproductive health is undeniably a subject that involves profound ethical considerations that will make women question themselves, and this division dictates some of their choices. There is nothing easy about an unwanted pregnancy. Abortion is not an easy decision. Adoption is not an easy decision. Keeping the baby is not an easy decision. Often, the type of choices a woman makes is to win the approval of other women so that they can approve of themselves. However, discovering their relatability to others will move women to empathize with or judge other women's choices. It's women in many ways who hold the greatest power over other women's self-worth. We possess the power to make each other feel whorish, polluted, loathed, unattracted, a shitty mother. The discrimination against women casts a wide shadow over the female experience. Each woman's journey varies. Each of us are driven by vastly different motivations. Each of us grapples with defining women's purpose as sister, wife, mother, adoptive mother, daughter, single parent, lesbian partner, or not a mother at all. Women's responses to tragedy may define them as an Athena. Some may engage in victim shaming that ultimately places the victim in social exile. Others may overreact and be too protective. Neither scenario benefits the actual victim. In the end, women want and demand their choices to be heard. We want to choose if and when to be a mother or not. We want paid parental leave so we can adjust to being a mom. We want to be working mothers. We want to be stay at home mothers. We want access to quality health care. We want choices free from judgment. We want support. I set out to record the humanity of a woman's choice so that others can more readily comprehend before they condemn. It is the diurnal actions of our lives that will endure, that will expose ourselves, our neighbors, our mothers, our friends, when we were too negligent in thinking they were nothing like us. Most of us know a woman who has had an abortion. At current rates, almost 1 in 4 women will have an abortion by age 45. As many as 10 to 20% of known pregnancies end in miscarriage, many in the first trimester. We all know a woman who has lost a baby. We know women who have been sexually assaulted. We know women who suffer from infertility. We know women who will never give birth. We know women who are choosing not to be mothers. This is their story, a story both of choices and lack of choices. Their stories warn us, don't be an Athena.
Well, thank you very much for spending time with us on the Artsy Raven.
Absolutely.
The Artsy Raven is produced by Dark Helix Press. Introduction voiceover by Chris Gorman. Music by Tim Moore. Please access your bonus content on the Patreon website. Thank you very much for listening, and please